Folks, this is live right here. I'm very excited about this one. I've been waiting months for this one. Yeah, this guy over here, he's actually, I'll let him introduce himself though. I'm very excited for this very special show. Go ahead.
Hello, brother. What do you go by? DJ Elf? That
Yeah,
what I
let's
should
go.
refer or
Elf
friend or
7,
brother?
Elf, yeah, whatever. I
L7.
don't care. Yeah, you call me whatever. Yeah,
Okay. Okay.
7. You can call me E. You can call me,
Brother 7. Oh, that sounds good. That
whatever.
sounds good. Does
That's
that
cool.
sound
Okay. All right, sounds
Well,
good to me.
I'm Dust James. I go by the Marxist Leninist trucker. I'm out of rural North Carolina. I've done work in immigrants' rights, within building coalitions within community and the labor movement. I've also done YouTube promoting Marxism, Leninism, and politics, left politics generally. Try to mix it in with some like rural culture and highlight aspects of rural culture and highlight progressive elements of rural culture. In some of my work, I have a Facebook page, Anti-Imperialist America, and group. Um, yeah, and I run a few chat groups, and
Okay.
yeah,
I've been following your stuff for a
yeah.
while,
Go
and
ahead.
I just want to ask a little bit about your background. Now, the thing is that I believe that you were adopted into a Spanish family.
Um, kind of. I was so broke. My family was kind of dysfunctional, and I basically lived at my ex girlfriend's house, starting when
Okay.
I was 14.
Did you end up
Um,
speaking Spanish and stuff like that?
yes, I speak Spanish. They were immigrants from Guerrero, Mexico, and yeah, my ex, and I ended up after. Yeah, I basically lived within the Mexican immigrant community for most of my part of my childhood and most of my adult life. So
That's cool, man. Yeah, and you talk about. I think you got to see people working at slaughterhouses. You may have worked at some yourself, other
yeah,
factory type environments. Yeah. So
yeah,
that's where these people work. And the toughest, most dangerous jobs. The jobs that others don't want to do. And you could say whatever you want, but that's real life, man. So I respect your coming from that community and the background. That's real, man. Now, one thing I want to ask about you is I believe that you're a communist now, right? Lenin's Marxist. Well, Marx is communist, right? But when did your political what got you first involved with this political stuff?
I my introduction to politics is my dad was a bit of he taught critical. My dad taught us critical thinking, and he was a bit of a he had some of the radical Christian leanings.
Okay,
Um,
can you give me an example?
like he was very much opposed to the wars. Um,
Okay,
from like a pacifist Christian perspective. So I actually did counter recruitment in high school when I was 17.
okay.
I would follow the recruiters around, and I actually got.
Would you do this with
Um,
your dad, or you did this on your own?
I did this. I took it upon myself. My dad helped,
Right.
helped raised me, but I took it upon myself as I was pretty religious back then, as a moral obligation to
Appreciate
go
that.
around and inform people of what actually is going to happen when they get in the military. And I actually received material from Quaker organization, religious group, the Society of Friends. They gave me this pamphlet called Sergeant Abe, and it went on. It talked about how they can extend your due date, they can change your contract anytime, you're more likely to be sexually assaulted. All this information you're not told. I would
So how
follow
did
the
this
recruiters.
how did this transition into communism?
Yeah, that's I'm just getting the story
Okay.
started. So, yeah, so communists lead the anti-war movement. I started
Okay.
when I was in high school, 2003, 2004 to 2008.
Was that
The
the Iraq
invaded.
War?
Yeah, the Iraq War,
I was around for
and
that. Oh, cool, man. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was around for that time too. Good.
so
Interesting. I have a story of my own to tell you about that, but that's cool. I want to hear
yeah,
yours.
so I mean, I first heard the answer about the Answer Coalition, which is a group that's led by PSL. I think it was Workers World. I don't know if they split. I don't know the details. I know
A quick
Workers World
question.
is split off
Is
PSL.
Oh yeah, I heard something about that. Yeah. I don't really look so much in the background. But yeah, PSL, are they say Party of Socialism Liberation? Are they communists or not really?
Yes,
I don't know.
they're communist. They're communist.
Okay, interesting. Okay, keep going on. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so I guess Workers World then
Okay.
is also
No,
communist.
but the anti-war movement has historically been led by communists. Like the most dedicated, persistent, organized people within the anti-war movement have been communists.
Well, I'm about to have some questions about that in a hot second, but keep going. Yeah.
Okay. Um, well, I could get further into that history, but no. When I remember in high school hearing Answer Coalition, no, but I went to college in Greensboro, and the people that ran the peace vigil were communists, and I was anti-communist,
Wait,
a
wait, wait.
bit
Who was
religious.
running the peace vigil?
I can't say exactly because they were an underground group,
Okay,
and I
one
don't
thing I
want
do
to.
want to ask, right, is like a lot of these communist groups that I've been in contact with, PSL, the Larouchians,
The
CPI,
Russianites are not communist.
they say they
Uh,
are.
the
They
Larouchians are
self-identify.
no. The Larouchites do not self-identify as communists. They're
That's what they told
openly
me.
anti-communist. Really? I think they started as a communist group and then they came and they broke off from that.
Okay.
But they're a
There's
weird.
also
They're
RevCom.
a weird cult. Yeah,
What,
that's Revolutionary Communist Party.
what about
That's
that? What do you think about
RCP.
those guys? What do you think about those guys?
Bob Avakian, he kind of has a. I mean, they're a little cultish now. I
I
wasn't
went to the
happy
recent
with
thing
their
and I was like,
Biden decision.
yeah, I was like, why are you
But
just talking
but
about this all the time? Yeah, like,
but Bob Avakian was in with the, he goes way back into the height of the political movement in San Francisco, and he has been probably he's been one of the people that's done some of the most work.
okay.
The
So if we take, yeah,
RCP helped found the Veterans Against the War
so if we look at like
and
these
ran it for a
right,
bit.
if we look at these
And
different, yeah, if we look at these different groups, I think Bob Avakian tries to say like he's about Mao or something like that. Now, as in terms of yourself, right? Like, I guess there's different people. Like, I guess you said earlier, Marxist, Leninist.
okay, I'm a Marxist
Um,
Leninist, and
okay,
I was trained by people in the South who were the children of the organizers from the 40s.
so how does that differ from these other communist groups?
It's a little different. It's kind of
Okay,
the new left and the old left. The old left is 40s, 30s, 40s, 50s. The new left is 60s, 70s. And there's positive and negative aspects of both, and they're a little different. And my Marxism Leninism is a little more 30s, 40s. I'm a big fan of Harry Haywood. You were on that study. But I consider them all. There's as many like communist and socialist perspectives as there is capitalist perspectives.
okay.
So
I
the
want to ask another.
Democrats,
Yeah,
Republicans, Libertarians, Green Party. Well, not Greens anymore. They're socialist. They were kind of progressive. They've become socialist, but they're like
okay.
baby. Yeah.
No, yeah. Now I do have another question for you. Now the thing is that if you look at like some channels like the All American Socialist, you look at Caleb Maupin, and even yourself, like in your older videos, right? Yeah, a lot of the communist commentators like to be in suits. Why is that?
Well, I mean, if you look at, I mean, there's a big thing on. If you look at like local religious people, they wear suits. Union representatives wear suits.
Okay, like pastors and stuff.
Um,
Yeah, okay.
communist, um, like
Do they?
when communists were in unions, a lot of the well, most of the communists I know had to be underground because of McCarthyism. But if you were in a labor organization or I mean, working class people when they go to church, they wear suits. I mean, it's just when you're out, you try to present yourself with the best
Okay.
um,
I
to be
always felt like
respectful.
it was managerial class type of stuff to see people in
I
suits. I always
I
felt that.
don't. Yeah, I think there's. I don't think that's complete.
But I get what you're saying
My
about like the pastors
politics
and stuff.
has nothing to do with what I wear. Now these grifters. I was a member of CPI, and
Okay.
I was working with them for a
I saw
while.
your speech at the
But
CPI. That was pretty good. I liked
yeah.
your speech there.
But I honestly had major disagreements
What happened? Yeah,
with
what happened there?
Moppin from the beginning
Yeah, he had some stuff to say about you too. He called you out by name. He's like, Dust James bad, blah blah blah. I saw that. Why is he so mad at you?
I don't remember. Well, he he um, he put our comrades in a bad situation. One of them, it
Yeah,
re-triggered. It pushed one of our comrades into sex work and had drug
two of them,
relapse.
two of them
Yeah,
into sex work. One of them into drug relapse.
and then um, and then he hired them and isolated them from the group, and I
Yeah,
was not okay with
yeah.
that. And then I went along with the victims, and I supported them in their statement. And then I was completely. I haven't talked to that person since. Like I'm not. I kind. It's interesting. I have criticisms of the left, the new left. From my perspective, being more traditional ML, being from a working class background.
Okay.
I have my disagreement. That's why I was introduced to you. Like I saw you in the street shouting down somebody, and you
Yeah.
said some stuff that I would agree with.
Cool.
And I
Okay.
was like, hell yeah. I was like, I wanted to promote this guy. And then some of my comrades, I won't say who, they're like,
Don't do
yeah,
that.
this
Don't do that.
guy,
Don't
this
do that.
guy, yeah, okay.
I know. Yeah, I know exactly. But
He might be a little provocative.
there's a
Maybe
lot of
this
people
isn't the
saying
best
don't talk
way
about
to
this guy.
go. Maybe
Real.
don't go. Maybe well, I'm not gonna cut nobody off. I'm not paid by anybody. I do everything on
Good.
my own, and I'm
Good.
real, and I debate. Um, but I kind of agree with them. Maybe shouting down people in the streets isn't constantly ain't the best way to go about things.
Yo, that's all I have
But
left, bro. You know what I mean? They
but
shutting off the other avenues, so I gotta.
but at the
Yeah.
same time, I see you building. I see you interview people. I see you making connections. So
Yeah. Doing what I gotta do, man. Yeah.
yeah,
Now,
yeah, yeah.
so the thing is, okay. The, so what do you? By the way, we know that there's like I had working with the socialist guy, and he's all about like the second international, third international, right? Yeah. Now the
Mhm.
thing is, what do you think about Trotskyists?
So I was trained as a Marxist Leninist.
Okay. So what is the problem with Trotskyists? Or are they okay?
Yes.
What do you think?
No.
Okay. So
Well,
just what is the
I
problem?
don't have a problem with people who have adopted. There's a lot of good Trotskyists,
Okay.
but it's my opinion that Trotskyism
Where does it fall
um,
short? Or where do you differ?
is it it largely takes root. I'm quoting Olgan, an American communist, who said it largely takes root in the petty bourgeois and academic scenes, and they tend to be perfectionists and basically will attack anything to build up their own egos.
Isn't that happening
It's
in the communists?
no, I mean, if I think I think Stalin did great things for the Soviet Union.
But what about the communist
I
groups
think
here, like Caleb and the Larouchians
there's this
and
just just
Bobavakian?
okay.
They're
The
making these hero
KKK
figures.
calls themselves capitalists. So is Bernie Sanders. Are they're not the same? Not all. There's as much diversity amongst socialists and communists as there is amongst people who are capitalists. Like
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's not
so
about the
it's
ideology for me. It's about the implementation.
yeah.
I mean, so I don't worry so much
Well,
about the ideology.
well, there's something to. I mean, there's something to the idea. The ideology is simply there's a more advanced stage past capitalism. It's a political economic change of system. You go from bourgeois democracy and the rule of the capitalists
I do
to
have okay.
proletarian democracy.
I do have another question.
And
So the
yeah,
thing is that you were inside of a Mexican community, and you know that a lot of these, you know, Latino and Asian communities are more communally based, right? They
yes.
have larger families.
Oh
It's not
yeah.
nuclear family; it's like extended family, all living together. You know, what I mean, all working together as a unit to try to pull together. So the thing is that it's interesting to me that the communal um, teachings that we learn about, right? I'm not just trying to be like woke here, I mean, just say, but I do feel like, there are probably examples from Asian and Latino communities about communal living and communal government that aren't really addressed. And I feel like it's weird that a society that really produced nuclear families is really the ones we talk about. You know,
I think you're
yeah.
wrong there.
Okay, maybe. Okay,
The majority of communists are not white. Maybe in the United
okay.
States, where the majority of people are white,
But when we talk about
but
like Marx and Lenin, right, and using them as
no,
the
the largest,
premier,
the most
okay,
populated country in the world, China,
yeah,
with the largest population, is openly Marxist-Leninist.
yeah.
I
How do you
mean,
feel about that? How do you feel about like like Ho Chi Minh or like these other, right,
these are
or maybe
these are
even
these are
Latin
great
American,
people who were
Hugo
able to
Chavez?
vastly improve their conditions using scientific socialism and organizing the people. These are heroes.
You
These
know,
are people to
okay.
examples to live up to and learn from.
So, oh, what's up? We need critical thinking. What's up? Just want to show that right there. One thing is that another thing that I do notice about the communists that I don't see I'd like to see more of is, for example, like you said, like you are supporter of Hugo Chavez.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm not mad at that, right? But what I would like to see is more of the actual Venezuelans on the show talking about their experiences with Hugo Chavez.
I don't live in Venezuela. People who are the oppressed nations in my community. We have the Black
Yeah, I'm
Belt
just saying.
South.
Yeah,
We have Raza. I mean, I'm an American organizing the international proletariat in the United States. I don't
I
live in
mean, yeah,
Venezuela.
being in New York
Who's
City,
going to
I
be
do.
on
Yeah,
there?
being in New York City, I do
I
have
live in
access to
rural
many
North
areas.
Carolina.
I
Well,
know.
a
I'm very
third,
lucky.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but it's
Okay.
actually,
And I
what?
mostly
Yeah,
focus.
when I
I
talk to
mostly my
Venezuelans themselves,
yeah.
I get a different story, and so it actually really makes me question everything that I listen to, and I really don't know if like the I'm not saying communism has to be bad or good, right?
Well,
I'm not necessarily against it, but
well, I mean, not
I don't really
everyone
know that
who
he's good.
that's highly depending on identity politics. Marxism Leninism is a way to understand the political economic
Try talk to some Venezuelans.
structure.
You can find them online.
Yeah, you don't have to be Venezuelan to understand that what's happening in Venezuela is good. You can look at the data
Talk
and
to some
know the
Venezuelans from
millions of
Venezuela.
people have no. Okay, so who are the
Some of them
majority of
might even
people who lead?
position.
Yes, there are some. I have talked with some Venezuelans in the United States who support the Maduro government, but a lot of them are gusanos. A lot of them are people who are classist and racist and don't like poor black and brown indigenous people running their government, and that's why they came to the majority white country, the U.S., to talk shit about those people and look down on those people.
Oh
Like
well.
that's a lot of those Venezuelan people. They're gusanos. Like it's straight up. They're like just because someone's Venezuelan don't mean they know about Venezuela.
Well,
If you listen to the government itself, look at the videos of the people there. I mean, like I'm from the South. It's a fictional character, but do you think what the lady from Gone with
you
the
think
Wind? Oh,
that country is so
Scarlet,
violent. That
yeah,
country is so
Scarlett
violent.
O'Hara.
You can't call it like functional because there's so much violence in Venezuela.
What?
You know,
What are you
you
talking about? Have
it's
you?
like
I
got
mean,
one of
you
the
live in
highest
New
murder rates
York.
in the
You know how
world.
it is. You
No,
know you.
New York City is very safe. Chicago is crazy.
All
New
right.
York City is not that
You
bad.
get there's horrible places in the United States, and this is the capitalist empire that steals all the resources from all over the world, and they
I'm
still
with
got
that.
some of the most.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
They still have some of the worst neighborhoods. I yeah, there's sanctions on the
Okay.
Venezuelan people, isolating them from their economy. Um, like they can't get all the medical needs they can't get all the industrial goods because of the United States, which hurts the socialists. But even within those harsh circumstances, um, a lot of Venezuelans have better stuff than we have. One of my comrades went down to Venezuela and she talked with the workers, and they talked about how they have free daycare facilities at the workplace. They allow nursing mothers off to breastfeed their children during the workday. I mean, these are stuff I've heard from Venezuela.
Wow.
Like, do we have that here? No, we ain't got none of that stuff here. I worked in the chicken plant. I didn't see none of that.
The water,
We
you know,
worked
like
12.
they hand out the water in the gallon tanks. A lot of people end up trying to get out of Venezuela, but you know, yeah, respect. I know that Cuba also like had like some good like health care, like you know things that the U.S. didn't, so they have better outcomes. So I'm not saying socialism always has to be bad, right? It could work, but once it's about the
Well,
implementation. So
there's also this people. Okay, people look at the majority of socialist countries, and they have been poor. Are they poor because they're socialists? No. The reason why socialist countries have been poor is because the people who are the worst off
yeah,
have been the
actually,
most
I do
revolutionary
want I do want to ask
and
about that.
fought and gained
Right.
socialism.
So when we look at like
And it
these,
was
yeah,
imperialism that caused the poverty. It was the United States policies and
I agree with you.
capitalists
I agree
that
with you.
caused the poverty in Latin America,
And
in Asia, in
that's one, yeah,
Africa.
that's one of the things that I really like about you, the way that you really recognize that the people who struggle the most are the ones who are going to be most revolutionary. So the thing is that when we look at the heads of a lot of these communist groups like Bob Avakian, I think his net worth is 5 million. Medea Benjamin, right? Yeah, a lot of these millionaires up there that are kind of like also monopolizing their access and resources,
Hmm.
which I understand because they had to get this is the power game, right? But how are these people really communists when we, right? Yeah, when the working people who are actually doing the work on the ground, we don't, right? I see this real power differential. I'm sure you see it too. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I share some of your criticisms. Like, yeah.
So yeah,
Like
yeah,
my
what do
idea
we do about that?
my idea of a functioning communist local party are people who go and organize the most exploited workers, lift them up, give them the tools of scientific socialism, have them analyze their own conditions, and then help empower their own communities.
Okay, do you
Like,
believe in
that's
the?
my
Yeah.
idea. That's what I think a
Do you believe?
socialist organizer does.
Do
Now,
you
I
believe in the
don't
concept of
think.
a vanguard party?
Yes,
And now the thing is, I think that the
but it
Trotskyists, earlier what
practices
you
debt.
said,
Uh-huh.
right? What your
Uh,
criticism of the
well,
Trotskyists is that the vanguard party is composed of bourgeoisie people,
it shouldn't be. The Vanguard
right? Yeah,
Party's
not
job
just bourgeoisie.
is to serve
Yeah.
the working class. They're a tool for the working class. They need democratic centralism. Democratic centralism, like, it was a policy in the organization that I was a part of to give out these surveys every
Do you think
few
we could
weeks
have
or
a?
months.
Do you think we could have a
And
convention of all the
but let me
communist
let,
organizations?
let me finish
Yeah.
let me finish
Go
my
ahead.
point.
I'm so
So,
sorry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
all right, so they would give out these questionnaires. What are the major problems facing your community? What is the major fight? How are the conditions? And then that would be sent into leadership, which would go up to further leadership. And the party is supposed to analyze that data and get and effectively organize around the issues most affecting the working class. That is a functioning communist party. Um, Now, do I think all the people who call themselves communists should get together? Probably not. A lot of them have um, I'm for organizing the working class, not organizing all the people who call themselves communists. Like,
Right.
Marxism Leninism is understanding the progression of history through class struggle,
Right.
right?
Right.
So Marx says workers of the world unite. That's Marxism. And then Leninism, which is Marxism within the imperialist era, is workers and oppressed peoples of the world unite, because there's two contradictions: class and national oppression, which are tied into each other. But yeah, I think we should look at and understand the contradictions of national oppression, which I would see the Black Belt South and the black communities, immigrant communities, um, Aslan, majority Mexican American Chicano people have never really been allowed to be part of this country. This is Marxism, Leninism, Harry Haywood understanding on the national question, which is one of the main contradictions. They have the right to self-determination. They've never been a part of this country. They should they should have their independence if they want, or any degree of which, um, but we really need, the big thing is, we need to organize against those contradictions, which means if you look at some of the biggest spontaneous mobilizations of the working class, what are the major two been in the last decade or so? It's been Black Lives Matter and it's been the Occupy movement. Those are the two contradictions: the national contradiction and the class contradiction. And we look at police brutality, that is one of the major mechanisms in which they maintain national oppression, which has the material result of Black people having 5 times less resources than the average population, 5 times more likely to be shot by the police, be incarcerated. These are social mechanisms that maintain that political economic institution of national oppression to this day. And racism is only the ideology that enforces that political institution. And myself, even as a white communist, I need to understand this. And I need to understand this because those contradictions is what's going to push people towards revolution. So it's not identity. I can understand it on a material basis. I mean, experience racism, you understand it better. But you can understand national oppression on a material basis simply based off of understanding the economic base
Now
and
what? Okay.
analyzing the social structure.
Now the thing is
Okay,
that
I said a lot. Go ahead.
no, I'm very excited to have you on the program. I really appreciate you making this clear. You do represent, like, again, we've actually mentioned other communist groups, some of them which we might agree or not agree, or other people might agree or not agree, are communist groups. But
Well,
I'm
anybody who calls themselves a
yeah,
communist is probably a communist. If you read Marx and you try to apply it, you're a communist to me. I'm not going to be like, you're not a real communist. I'm the real communist. No, communists to me are just anybody who reads Marxism, Leninism, reads the theory, tries to apply it in their work, which
well,
means
I
you can
think there's
have
a
a
lot of communists
completely
that
different, yeah. You
I
can
think
have a
there's a lot of communists
completely
that need.
different understanding of what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to get there. We just have a similar goal, or we claim to have a similar goal.
I think a lot of communists need to reevaluate their unquestioning following of millionaire leaders that are, I'm not saying that they can't
I
be part of
agree.
the revolution, but look, they're not really suffering like us, and you said the
Well, I
most
mean,
revolution are the
okay,
ones who are suffering the
let's look
most.
at the
Yeah,
let's
that's
look at the
true.
history. Let's look at
Yeah,
the history of the communist movement in the United States. In the 1940s, the Communist Party, which was a functioning communist party, which
okay,
organized the unemployment councils, which organized the largest unions. The CIO was led by communists. It was
okay,
half of what is the AFL-CIO today, and the CIO organized industrial workers, Eastern European workers, black workers, Chicano workers. They organized the most exploited and oppressed into unions, built workers' power, built working class institutions. So we had a communist party of hundreds of thousands of members representing people in unions and and community organizations of millions of people. In 1933, um, William Z. Foster ran on the campaign of self-determination of the Black Belt South.
okay.
Like,
Yeah, wait, I did want to. Okay,
so
I did
that
want
was
to
the
ask a
height
question.
of it.
Yeah,
I'm saying the
yeah,
height of it. But then
yeah.
look what happened. Okay, 1950, McCarthyism. Like the people who organized the first those large integrated, some of the first integrated unions in the South in my state. Those people were drug out of their houses,
Okay,
tortured, told to give up names. Like they basically and in
I do.
those
Okay,
unions, what
I
happened in
do.
those unions? They kicked all the communists out of the unions,
Okay,
weakening the
I do
union
want to. Okay,
movement.
I do
So
want to ask about that because the thing is that I do hang out with a lot of people that are actually saying "f communism," this kind of thing, and I do feel like I understand their concerns. So I just want to run some of those by you right quick and see what your take is on
I
some of these issues.
all right.
Okay,
Let me
so what?
finish the story of how
I'm so sorry. Okay, go ahead.
communism got so weak. So all right. So and then after let's see, so you had the McCarthy era in the 50s, and then you had concessions from FDR. Basically, FDR was worried there was going to be a socialist revolution, like the Soviet Union when the
Yeah, he
Soviet Union
saved
was very
capitalism.
strong.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
know.
saved capitalism.
Yeah, that's
So and then what happened was they developed a majority white labor aristocracy that got the houses, that got the cars, they got the crumbs. Who the hell is want to organize with poor people when they got that shit? They were bought off. All right. So, and then in the 1960s, at the height of the labor aristocracy, who came out against the Vietnam? It was showed who came out against Vietnam. These college kids with no roots in the community. I mean, maybe the Black Panthers were pretty based. They had roots in the community. The Brown Berets. Actually, you don't know this because Hollywood and racism. The largest anti-war movement demonstration in the United States was led by Chicanos. It was the Chicano Moratorium in 1970. That was the largest anti. If you look on TV, it's all these rich college kids. I mean, Bob Avakian's probably has done the most communist organizing in the United States in the New Left era to an extent. He's a judge's kid. It was a whole different, like the old communism to the new it was a completely different conditions. The masses of workers who were in the labor
You
aristocracy,
know,
it was more
yeah,
of these intellectual types with no
actually,
basis in the community.
Bob
Like that's what I'm saying.
Avakian,
That's the new
yeah,
left.
Bob Avakian is
I have
considered,
criticism new left. Go ahead.
Bob
You get what
Avakian
I'm
is, yeah.
saying.
Well, I
That's
do have some
how
questions about
they
that, right?
destroyed
Because
us. Go ahead.
Bob Avakian is also like, he also says he's a Maoist in some way, and also he claims some kind of ties to anarchism. So we know that the left has a lot of these different definitions, like anarcho-communists,
Okay.
anarcho-capitalists, right? Yeah, and like there's all the kinds of
Well,
like weird fusion, like anarcho, like libertarians. So one of the questions I want to ask for my friends, right? Yeah, because I know a lot of
okay.
them are very anti-communist. I just want to know where you would stand on this. A lot of them are concerned that a communist government would force them to get a vaccine. What do you think about that? Is that true, or
A
would all
communist will force people to get vaccines. Is that what you're saying?
a lot of them feel this way? They feel like a communist is
Okay.
really kind of
Well,
like
the
overpowering
largest
and
the
trying to tell
largest
them what to do with their
Marxist
lives.
largest Marxist-Leninist country in the United States, China, attempted vaccine mandates. The people resisted through the democratic processes, and they didn't do it.
Okay,
So I mean, and also look at the COVID zero policy in China. It worked, and it was better, and they actually had more civil liberties. If you look at the United States,
I
they
don't know
shut
that.
down. Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't necessarily believe
So
that.
the
Yeah,
COVID
I don't
zero
believe any
policy.
international news.
I mean, I've talked with the different parties. I looked at the statistics, and they kept the factories open. They didn't shut down whole cities and portions of the country. They have a far better healthcare system and healthcare infrastructure
I don't
because they're
believe
able
any.
to
Yeah,
invest in that. But basically, they were able to test the simple principle of why COVID zero policy worked is they invested in not only they have the healthcare infrastructure to deal with it, or they were able to build hospitals quickly. The big thing was testing.
I'm
They
not saying it
invested
did. I'm not
in
saying it didn't. I don't.
they
Honestly,
invested in well, a correct, whether you agree that China did it or not, the right policy is like I'm not even in favor of the mandates. I actually was wanted to go out and do outreach to the truckers. I actually did an interview with Moppin saying how communists should be out there supporting the Canadian convoy.
have you seen any of my work?
I've not around COVID. COVID's not a big issue of
Oh,
mine.
not around COVID. I mean, like about like wrongful convictions or disabilities issues or getting together candidates from across the country.
I've seen you interview a few people. I'm not familiar with a lot of it.
Okay. Well, just so you know, or even your own work, which is significant, right? The news also, there's a lot of things that the news is not covering. That's in our own country, right? So why would you
Yes.
trust anything coming even from like just being Korean American for a long time?
I
I
trust
realized
anti-imperialist media. Like
like
I
who?
think like I watch Chinese media, Russian media, and Venezuelan media. I think that media is far better than the United States media.
I
Like they
talked,
have a
yeah,
completely different political economic system that's run for different purposes. And there is a bias. Everywhere has a bias. But I think the worst media in the world is United States capitalist media.
I talked to the
And I
people
and
directly.
I
You know what I mean? I,
yeah.
like I couldn't go to Venezuela itself, but I have talked to Venezuelans here in New York City, quite a
That's
few of
not
them.
they're not all of them are representatives of the people of
That's
Venezuela.
true as well. That's true as well.
Like
You're right
the
about that.
Venezuela diaspora here is not representative of the majority of the
You're
people.
goddamn right. Yeah, and Miami's worse with that. Yeah, you're right. Most of
Yeah,
them are
yeah.
in Miami, but the wealthy ones. But there is a different community out here. There's a Chinese community that's in Venezuela, that's also here in so they have their own, right, different thing going on, and that's the community that I was kind of in contact with. So it's another, right, interesting little take on that whole situation. But I appreciate your work, man. Yeah, and I know you called out others when others folded and backed them up, and I appreciate you actually standing for decency, not just falling in line with the hierarchy. So once again, right? Yeah, a lot of people are concerned about communists being an authoritarian state and telling them what to do. You said sometimes it's effective.
I
You
think
yourself have
that
stood up against.
socialism,
Yeah.
yeah, socialism helps organize society in a way that builds an economic base that enables more civil liberties,
Wait,
not
hold on.
less. We will be
You're,
more
yeah.
free under communism and socialism. I would
Wait,
say that Venezuela is far more democratic than the United States.
you're touching on another question actually right now. The thing is that I believe that the socialism was held by the Second International, and then communism was a response and a call to a
Yes.
Third International. So
Yes.
you before you talk about socialism, but what is for you the critical difference between communism? What is communism doing that socialism really isn't?
Okay. Okay. So
Why communism not? Why not
socialism
PSA? Go ahead.
is a general term. There's various types of socialism. There's utopian socialism, religious socialism. Socialism is a very broad term for a society organized on a collective basis, whether that be anarcho-libertarian or the Second International, whatever it be. That's it. The communists were mostly Lenin, who 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 read Marx, who called
Okay.
himself a communist, and the Second International was all these socialist parties, largely Marxist parties in Europe, right? And it's
Yeah.
actually interesting. And they were thinking, well, we got to organize the working class against the capital. What happened was capitalism was in a relative stable period of growth, and the labor movement was mostly because of the stealing of resources from the colonies, mostly because of imperialism, was able to the communists in the developed Europe were able to win gains in the labor movement to the point where they didn't see the need for a socialist revolution. So you had people like revisionism. This guy openly claimed to be a revisionist. I think his name was Bernstein. He said, "Oh, we're just going to win a little bit here, win a little bit there, and then eventually we're going to have socialism." But in reality, all those the imperialist bloc was developing a labor aristocracy that was sharing in the exploitation of the third world, being bought off and actually supporting imperialism. So when the imperialist war broke out, um, World War One, Lenin said, "Okay, imperialism exists." He explained all this. The reason why there isn't a revolution in Europe is because they're all bought off, labor aristocracy. They're not on the edge. But we in Russia, who are the most backwards, underdeveloped, semi-feudal, impoverished portion of Europe, we have this massive peasant population living who die with famines by the year. We have a very exploited, just beginning to develop working class. So there's like we're going to unite the workers and the peasants. We're going to take power. We're going to have, and they had the first revolution, and that was a development of Marxism to Marxism Leninism, which is the understanding of dialectic materialism in the age of imperialism and the era of imperialism. So that's the break between the Second International and the Third International. The Third International recognizes, understands, and analyzes the imperialist system. And Marx touched on it with the Irish, the exploitation of the Irish, and later on in his life he got better. But Lenin and his understanding imperialism, the highest stage of capitalism, he was able to recognize that. And ever since then, the majority of socialist revolutions, contrary to what Marx said, did not take place in Europe. They took place in Russia, they took place in China, and they've been taking place in the third world.
In Latin America too, yes, but not
Yeah, in
here.
Latin America, exactly. So That's the diff. And Marxism, Leninists are scientific socialists, which they use dialectic materialism, which Marx came up with, which is simply looking at the material base. Like you can look at the economic numbers from the capitalists themselves, and they usually do good reporting because that's how they make economic decisions to serve their class. We can look at those numbers, see what's happening to
Certain
us.
numbers are recorded, certain numbers aren't. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, the capitalists have an interest of keeping up with numbers for governing their societies
That's
in a
true.
way that will benefit the capitalists.
And they pay attention to certain numbers, and they don't pay attention to others.
Yeah, but
And
you
they
can
report
look
certain
at
numbers, and they don't report others.
yeah, but you can look at the rough data, understand what's going on, who has the money, who doesn't have the money, what conditions the masses of people live in,
I don't
what
believe
the
that so much,
masses of
but
people are going
I'm not mad at that.
through.
Yeah, you. Yeah.
That's dialectic materialism, material analysis. That's my understanding and perspective on the world. I think
Okay.
that history moves forward through these contradictions of classes, and the old and dying class, the capitalist class, is kind of scratch and claw its way up, keep it on top, and
So
the working
just
class.
yeah. So just all this working class stuff. Just want to go back just one more time, just to make it absolutely sure, because I just think that before you said lockdowns, like zero COVID, like was successful. So you would
Yes,
support lockdowns. You would support
I
vaccine
think the
mandates or
Chinese
whatever.
lock. No, well, I don't think vaccine mandates were necessary. I think
Okay.
COVID zero with testing and targeted lockdowns
Okay.
was far more successful and had far better results, and had a better protection of civil liberties in comparison to the United States. In the United States,
Okay.
they shut down entire city. They shut down, and they didn't even fully shut down. Who did they tell that the rich people could go whatever they wanted? They told the poor people, "Oh, we're shutting down your restaurant job." All
Okay.
the people on the edge of society were forced to stay at home and starve and not given it barely any compensation.
Okay.
And that was the lockdowns in the United States. In China, they tested the whole country, and if there was an outbreak, they could pin it down, and then they would shut down a specific block or a specific neighborhood, and then they would bring food into those people.
Okay. Yeah. That's
So I
good.
mean, that's a way, that's better protection of civil liberties, better economic policy all the way around. It's a better policy than what the United States did.
What do you? Okay. So earlier we were talking about some organizations like Workers World and PSL. I believe that PSL is actually an offshoot of Workers World, correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Um, but they're honestly, whatever fight between their leadership doesn't really bother me. Um, I really don't pay attention to that so much. But what do you know anything about that, or do you have any particular sides? Do you feel like one of them is a more truer um, version of communism than the other?
I think PSL is one of the largest functioning socialist parties. Um, it's
Okay.
probably the largest functioning socialist party, actually Marxist party in the United States. They led the anti-war demonstration,
They're bigger than
the peace in
RevComs.
Ukraine. What'd you say?
I see Rise and Resist stuff everywhere. They're bigger than RevComs.
Yeah, the Revolutionary the RCP has. I think PSL is a little bigger, and
Okay.
at least has more resources and organizing capacity than RCP. But I've seen RCP do good work. I've seen them out in the black neighborhoods organizing against police brutality. I've seen members of RCP doing good and quality work. Um, I've had disagreements with them. I think there's problems with all these organizations. I'm saying, honestly, all of this stems from the left being weak, and the left is weak because two things happened in the United States. They beat it down. They killed off the Panthers. They took people into jail in McCarthy era. The Communist Party became a shell of an organization. It gave up its most radical policies. It was beat down, and then people were bribed off. This is the heart of empire. This is the heart of the beast This is the belly of the beast. We're going to have a harder time organizing communism when they have the most largest police state in the world, and they can bribe off whoever we start to organize, and then they can manipulate. They can go in and pay people off within our organizations and manipulate them for their benefit. They could tear us apart with this money. I mean, that's why we're weak. I'm not going to put any blame on the majority of these people who are doing good work. I'm saying we have a really hard uphill situation in the United States as communist organizers.
Okay, so while you're out there pushing the real fight, right? The fact of the matter is that the industry is raising up these fakes to take the money, the access, and the attention. How can now the thing is that, right? If we take a look, like for example, the real estate industry, right? They have their own, channel, Home and Garden TV, to like really push their stuff. That's how much advertising they buy. That's why the news specifically covers the news regarding, right, their shills and stuff like that. And other people in other industry become shills for someone who's richer, who will provide them with the media access and resources and things like that. So while those people are getting so many resources, right, we're actually losing in a world where their resources keep gaining and gaining at a faster rate than honest players in the game can rise up. So if you're really about helping the people, right, are the people really paying money into like try to help fund activism like yourself or mine? No, right? So
I got what you're saying. Yeah.
how can we compete against that
The
industry?
NGO, the nonprofit industrial complex, which largely serves the government and the capitalists,
Mm-hmm.
who claims to be supporting of the people, but they're not. They're manipulating for the two parties within the duopoly. The strategy of socialists or communist, communists is what the Black Panthers did in the 70s. They were the best example. And you need to go deeper and lower in the proletariat, number one, make roots among the most exploited and oppressed people, and then serve the needs of the people, um, and win victories for them within community and labor organizing. Maybe even provide resources or find ways of providing resources. And by serving the people and proving yourselves to the people will invest in that organization. Like I don't really like a lot of this, like the organization that I was a part of, the underground group. Um, we were based off a dues structure, um, which were working people paying the dues to fund what the organization needed. And it was based off the process of democratic centralism, where the majority of the people put input in, find out what the most pressing issues, and put resources um, towards those things. But you have to be very disciplined. Working people don't have time to sit around and do long chats and this and that. They want to show up to a party meeting. They want to say what's going on in the community and want the information related to the leadership, and the leadership to carry out the necessary tasks to further empower the people. So the way of not being bought off is to get your support and build bases within the most exploited and working class people.
Yeah, I'm actually doing that right now, to tell you the truth. Yeah.
Yeah.
People
And you
disabilities,
don't have to
long-term
be a
incarcerated.
communist to do this. Like, okay, communists use something called dialectic materialism, and they analyze that basically people
I feel like
come to a point
I'll be honest,
like,
I like you, but there's a lot of communists I feel like that are getting in the way. And I wish that they were all like
okay,
open to have a conversation like yourself,
I,
right? But a
I
lot of these
probably
communist
think so.
millionaires and stuff, yeah,
So, the way Marxism works, you don't have to claim to be a communist to be on to be on the side of the people and the oppressed. Basically, there's two forces in the world right now: the capitalists, the monopolies, and then we have the masses of oppressed people and workers. And one group needs to overtake the other. And if you're with the people and you're fighting for an oppressed people, or you're fighting for workers, even if you don't claim to be a communist or or get insight from scientific socialism, you're still an ally and on our side, better than any communist so-called person that says they're a communist but is actually working for the enemy.
okay. Now, right now, you mentioned some other. We mentioned a couple countries, right? Venezuela, Cuba, Russia, China, right? Yeah. Do you feel like any of these countries is really kind of like the more ideal, or maybe like where
It's
there's
not
any,
about. I
or
don't see it as
are
ideal.
coming out maybe not ideal, but maybe like better at performing certain things. Maybe
I
others are
think
weaker. Yeah.
I think the Russians are not imperialists. So
Okay.
they're more, and their closest ally is oppressed nations and China. So, and they have a different type of capitalism, which is not is predator, is Western imperialism. Um, are they socialist? I think they're anti-imperial. I think Russian government are anti-imperialist allies against the main enemy, which is American imperialism, or imperialism led by American imperialism.
Interesting. Okay.
So I don't see it as there's any society that is like the ideal. I'm not preaching an ideal society. I want historical progress.
Do you
How
think
we
there's a
get
way? Okay. Do you,
how we get historical process is empowering oppressed nations, empowering working class, and lift and improving conditions for the people. I know that China has lifted, was it 900 billion people out of extreme poverty, and they've done it through planning the economy. That is a massive success. They're also offering better deals to Latin America, to Africa. And if you look at the countries that China trades with, those countries become more prosperous, get infrastructure. Why anybody that gets INF loans gets poorer and poorer and more chaotic. So, I mean, I think that's a major part. I think that is the geopolitical of the so-called East versus West, is a part of the global class struggle at this point.
okay. So just so my people that are out there watching, I know a lot of them are anti-communist, but just so you know, I myself have no problem with communism. I think it really depends on how it's implemented. I think it could be implemented in a, in a reasonable way, or it could be implemented in a oppressive way. So I'm not for it or against it, but I think
Well,
it, yeah.
I mean, what's your alternative? Capitalism, which is far
I just don't
worse.
trust. I don't
There's
trust
there's
anything.
been tons of socialist. There's been tons of. Well, you got to have something. What you have nothing? I mean, the
I'm an
principle of
anarchist. I'm
okay,
an anarchist.
the principle of socialism, like if you look at the Soviet Union, what is a Soviet? A Soviet is the Workers' Council.
I'm not
It
mad.
was
Yeah,
a
but just yeah.
government. It was a government built up of the workers' councils, and those worker councils were supposed to inform the main leadership and then organize the economy in a way that benefited the people, and
Well,
they accomplished
right.
it.
What
The
I can say
Soviet
that's
Union went
one thing that
went
I
from the
respect about
most.
the communists is their mobilization abilities, and we could really use them on my. Now I'm working with the second longest wrongfully incarcerated man in New York State history. I know that they came out to do some stuff for Jordan Neely. I myself am a subway performer. There's a lot of ways that the communist movement could really help, like the public housing. And I know they were out there. I was like unhappy about the way the leadership is coddling Nick Brana, Medea Benjamin, and that's why I'm kind of like giving a little bit of static. But I do appreciate them coming out to help out on the public housing issue. I really wish that communists like yourself, right, and you're really a pioneer in this, and I appreciate you being the first communist to really come on the show. I mean, other communists are invited. I think Diane Sayre came on, but she had to drop me for her friend Nick Brana, which is sad. Yeah. Okay.
I
Either way, that's
I'm
heartbreaking.
also not a fan of Nick Brana. I know I have spoken to um, the the woman that he sexually
Saying
abused,
saying
insulted,
that day.
and
Yeah.
she is a single mom from Appalachia. And I'm not down with that shit. Some of these rich fuckers who claim to be socialists, who are able to go to schools, who are able to spend all this time reading this stuff, and then hoard their knowledge and use it to their benefit to manipulate people around themselves. That's not what socialists should be doing. Those
It's
people are
really, yeah.
fakes and
It's not
cons and
cool. It's
grifters.
not cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible, but it's going to happen when the left is so weak. When the left is so weak, and the contradictions are so harsh, and
Yeah.
people are looking for answers, and
I'm
there's
looking
not a
forward to working with,
principled
yeah.
organization, and
I'm
there's
looking forward
not
to
a
working with other
principled organ,
communists.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Y'all can
and there's
back us
not a
up. We need your
principle,
help.
there's not a principled organization doing it. Then you're going to get these people that are going to prey on the needs of the people and prey on the people. until we
Yeah,
actually have something to keep them in line and keep them straight.
yeah. I'm not saying that we have to completely eject Caleb Maupin, but just hold him accountable, right? That's all, right? I'm
Yeah,
not.
I
Yeah, he just doesn't get to play
honestly,
leader
I
and not
like.
be unaccountable.
Have you seen his recent video on the injustice system?
No,
It was
I start.
decent.
Yeah, I can't.
It was decent.
This guy's a hurt. Honestly, if I see him face to face, we're gonna have
No,
problems.
it was a documentary he did. I think he's a horrible grifter that's so egotistical. He's
Well,
willing
he's part
to
of a crew that's trying to
destroy the movement,
that's
you
white
know.
blackballing
And
the.
he's in with a lot of people. The LaRouchites um,
What now? The thing is that they
are
say they're
they're a cult.
communists.
They're another cult. The LaRouchites are another cult. They're a right wing. They don't believe they're not communist. Okay, to me, a communist has to be a scientific
Are
socialist.
are
Or-
communists attracted to this cult of personality? We take a look at
I think that's a general human characteristic.
okay.
It's just as much the only thing that the bourgeois capitalists were able to put up a little more show and build more complex systems in order to hide what's really going on. I
Mm,
used this quote that said, if you apply liberal sensibilities universally, it only favors those with the resources to tell the biggest lies
that's what
and
we're in
build the
right
most
now.
complex systems.
That's why I don't believe a damn thing. Exactly. You're damn right. That's exactly true. I'm with that 100%.
And but that's why dialectic materialism that looks at the base and the conditions is more able to analyze what's going on and be able to use the tool for organizing.
Mm. Okay, well,
That's why I don't trust liberal sensibilities. Like simply, oh, this person said that and they're black, or this person like identity politics. I'm not a
okay. So
like I not I'm
okay.
not against all identity. Like I support black nationalists. I support Chicano nationalists. I'm not against all forms of identity politics. But there's a specific type of very shallow, liberal, manipulative. Like Obama was the black president. They said, "Oh, we're free because of that," but he was white power and blackface.
So
You,
okay, so
you see?
yeah, one of the things that we know, I do actually help my friends do like immigration and stuff like that, right? One of the questions on the immigration thing is, are you communist? You better answer no. You know what I mean? To
Yeah,
become a
that's
U.S.
from the
citizen.
McCarthy era. That's from the
Yeah.
McCarthy era.
Now the thing
So
is,
if a
yeah,
communist was to honestly answer that, they weren't allowed in. So how
I
many
think it's still the case.
Venezuelans wanted to come to the United
It's
States
still the case.
and they said no, you can't come because you're a communist.
Well, yeah. So the thing is, right? Yeah, this is I think it's a little outdated, and they could
It
actually
needs to be done
take
away
a
with.
look at that.
It's completely undemocratic, and it comes from a very fascistic period of the United States history.
Yeah. So we take a look at this particular idea of communism, stuff like that, and what is the you think the current relationship now with communism and the United States now? You think that there's good? You think that like something like that could be overturned? You think that like people are more accepting of the
It's
term?
a okay. Um, well, I think Occupy had a lot to do with making the term socialism more acceptable.
Okay.
They did it was a lot of anarchists and they were middle class, but there was also a lot of tension right after the 2008 housing bubble. People, a lot of mostly white people, who whose parents were able to in the 80s, have one person working, or they could get a car, they could send their kids to school. That was all gone. So a lot of people were looking around and they're like, "Oh, this is supposed to be the greatest country in the world. Capitalism is supposed to be the best economy." And people were like, "I don't believe the lies anymore." So when Occupy happened and they said the problem is the 1%, the problem is Wall Street, that struck an accord with people. And they saw this as an alternative. And I think what happened, unfortunately, is Bernie Sanders, who I say even they best ain't shit, meaning he won't honor he maybe he did some good stuff in the past, maybe he pushes for better bills, but in reality he was used as a sheepdog to take that energy and push it back into the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And I think, but what made Bernie Sanders possible to begin
Let's
with
let's talk
was the
about Bernie
mass
Sanders for a second.
conscious and understand
Yeah.
the mass conscious and understanding that largely came from the larger Occupy movement, which I was a part of.
I actually joined the socialists back in the '90s, and back then, right, the really when we talk about socialism, the idea of revolution, right, that power would not like step out of the way itself. So really, Bernie Sanders was really ran for Congress at that time as a socialist, and the idea was that you couldn't really take it through electoral reform, right? So, right, which is so as the communist, are you actually revolutionary yourself? And what does that entail if not through an electoral system?
Um, so, okay, so the majority of socialist organizers do not want a violent revolution. We're not like, we don't want violence, but when you organize the people, when you start feeding the people, when you start organizing think systems and get the people to feed themselves and take care of themselves, and you start cutting profits from the monopolies,
Yeah,
the state will come down with harsh repression,
yeah.
and you have to defend yourself. And if you look at what happened in the Soviet Union, it would
I think
the
people got tickets for
Soviets,
feeding homeless people.
yeah,
People got
no,
tickets for feeding
no,
homeless
no,
people.
no. I'm saying in the
Yeah,
1917 revolution, there was supposed to be a two-stage revolution where first they overthrew the czar and then they overthrew the bourgeoisie. Well, they had a joint government with the bourgeoisie, and then the forces of feudalism tried to take back over. And because the Soviets were the most organized and most effective and most in tune with the people, they were the ones that ended up taking power from the bourgeoisie when threatened. They didn't physically try to force it. They simply had to defend just simply by defending their gains, they were able to take power. So I think that's the crux of what it means to be a justified revolutionary is you simply have to arm yourself and defend your gains, which means it could and need to result in a violent revolution. But you certainly don't advocate that directly. And in the United States, where they tell us we have all these freedoms, where there's place, we have electoral politics, we can do petitions, we can do labor organizing. We should be doing those things first,
I agree. Yeah, as someone
and
who's
then
actually,
when and
yeah,
then when those things and then when we have state repression, we need to defend ourselves. But I
as
mean,
someone,
the
yeah,
average
yeah,
person, if you go to the average person in the street and be like, "Hey, here's a gun, let's go destroy the capitalism," I mean, what the fuck, you're crazy? Nah, you can't do that shit. But if you tell the average person, "Hey, your wages suck, let's organize a union, come to this meeting, and you're gonna get health care and like a year or so," I mean, that's something
as
we can do.
as a war survivor, I'm gonna tell you right now that the generational effects of the violence that is perpetrated during a revolution will actually, right, your children will suffer as a result of the violence that
Yes.
you experience
But
right
that
now. I'm telling
violence
you
was
right now, yeah.
imposed by the
So
capitalists, not
yeah,
socialists aren't for
well,
violence. It's a
I get that.
necessary evil.
And one thing that I want to say though is, yeah, I appreciate you saying that, right. And sometimes revolution is necessary, but yeah, once again, right, in that sense, one thing that we've done right now in New York City is, for actually the entire state, is we've been collecting the voter data for the past several years, and we made this information free to the public, and we actually help people run for office for something called county committee. County committee actually is, the leadership actually installs the judges. So if you want electoral reform, want criminal justice reform, a lot of times the last step is the judge. And right, and you heard about other anti-establishment people taking over in Nevada, taking over in Buffalo. This is actually a target that's also being trying to be achieved in New York State. And if you want to, I'm not sure what state you're in, but there's a lot of uh, states make the voter list for free, but they only publish it for that year. So you gotta collect it and then save that for the next year. You know what I mean? And you can collect that data, and it's worth thousands of dollars to tell you the truth. Yeah,
Good.
and you could, yeah. So if you guys really want to help us get stuff done, we're trying to also work with the wrongfully incarcerated, and that could be a powerful addition to, uh, you know, uh, communist recruitment efforts if they actually help people such as the ones I'm working with. So I'm really looking for allies desperately. And thanks once again for being a pioneer amongst the communist community to really come out and work with myself. I do respect the work with the Black Panthers. They have a long and celebrated history. And all the people out there that hate on communism, I'm not really going to hate on it. You know what I mean? There's some communists that are good and some that are bad. And thanks for being for one of the good ones. I mean, today, for myself, right, not saying you're totally good, but for giving us time to talk and to get to know each other and to really work together. You know, I really appreciate that. Yeah. Oh, we need critical ask what's the difference between a socialist and a communist. I think we already asked that, but
I
yeah,
went into a long rant on that.
yeah, it's all good. I appreciate that. Yeah. Hey, I felt like I'm learning things too, man. I don't really get to dive so much into like the. I have read the Communist Manifesto, by the way. I do want to ask about that in a second, but I haven't really dived into it so deep, right?
If I was the first book from Marx, I would read Wage, Labor, and Capital. And
Okay.
it's basically understanding capitalist economy. It's not really telling you how to deal with it, but regardless of the type of organizer you are, it will teach you about the economy and how it runs.
Now, Marx seems to be very unhappy with the bourgeoisie. He says like they're really created a society of like super oppression and
He
poverty
also considered them revolutionary at one point
as well, right? Yeah. So right, exactly. So we're gonna ask you like,
because it comes in stages.
so yeah. So okay. So let's
Social and historical process that comes in stages. Like we started out in hunter-gatherer society, and then we had the agricultural revolution, which led into these larger slave societies, and then
well,
slave societies.
I'm living through this battle right now, right? Through the classes struggle within the
No, I'm
communist.
saying each
Right,
one of these has better conditions for the people. It's a more advanced system with better conditions for the people. Like hunter-gatherer societies were horrible, and there was a little bit better, at least a more advanced economy. It wasn't the
whoa,
best for
okay.
the
You should
slaves,
you should
but
read this book called
from
Ishmael by
slavery
yeah.
to the peasant class, there was improvements in being a peasant versus being a slave. Like you could keep some of your harvest at the end of the year and use it how you want, but you still had to tap your hit in the nodals. Well, the next system, the next class to come to power was the bourgeoisie, which helped with the Industrial Revolution. Things are way better now under the bourgeoisie than they were under the feudal class.
It's
And that
interesting
was
you
a
say that. Yeah.
development. And in the next revolution, the proletariat will take power
Have
and
you?
implement
Yeah.
socialism. So each time it gets better. At one point, the bourgeois was revolutionary, the class, and it took power from the kings and the monarchs. And now the old and dying and oppressive and exploited obsolete system and class is the capitalist. And the proletariat and the working class will take power and then implement a more advanced stronger. It's not even just more. It's not even more just. It's actually a stronger, more effective system that can better allocate resources and invest in the means of production in a way that's sustainable and rational.
Okay. All right. Respect, man. I appreciate that. All right. Cool, man. Um, pretty good. So, was there anything else really? Okay.
Um,
The Bougie lineup was really what I wanted to know the most about. Yeah. So
what?
the Bougie lineup. Yeah. Like how they
Yeah.
move up the cycle. So that's yeah. I do
Well,
remember that. Yeah. The stages. Yeah.
bourgeois capitalism became imperialism, which is a morbid, disgusting form of, which is constantly at war and it constantly needs to super exploit oppressed nations, carry out these coups, um, buy back dictators. That's all. That's all of those things that are done. The U.S. does to the global South is to maintain the super profits for the monopoly capitalists here.
What's your position on the migrant crisis?
Which migrant crisis? The U.S. Mexico border, Africa and the Mediterranean, Middle East. I mean, everywhere, everyone is fleeing the war zones and the poverty zones that are created by the imperialists and trying to get to where they stole, where they put the goods, which is in the Western imperialist countries.
That's a. I think that's a fair assessment. Yeah. I think that's a fair assessment.
I think we need more socialist revolutions in the global South. I mean, a lot more people are coming from Guatemala, El Salvador, Mexico than they're coming from Venezuela or Cuba. Like those, there's a lot more immigrants come because conditions are far worse. If you compare conditions um, in the socialist countries in Latin America compared to the capitalist ones, things are way worse in the capitalist countries.
Mm, well, not really sure about that one, but I'm sure it's not always true. I'm sure it's not always false, right? I'm just not.
My position as a worker in the United States
Okay.
is immigrants are one of the most exploited groups, and therefore we need to be fighting for them the most and the hardest.
Yeah.
Communists want to rise up those that have the least to rise up for the whole, and we need to focus on those that are the most exploited. And it's a little bit different between the Asian diaspora, and the smaller immigrant communities versus the Chicano nation, which has ties to Mexico. If you look at a good portion of the immigrants in the United States are from Mexico. It's an exploited country right on the border, and um, a third of the United States was stolen from Mexico. So there's a huge specific national, like the oppressed nation of Aslan is one of the most cohesive exploited groups. And if you go outside of the country, and then the Rasa are usually put into that condition of the
Oh yeah.
Chicano nation. Like if you're brown from other countries, you're usually considered Chicano, or you're put into that and treated with those conditions. But there's also other immigrant community, and Filipino immigrants in California were treated
Yeah.
similarly the way they treat Chicano people. And Chicano people aren't even immigrants. They're
Yeah. They're the
brown
famous
people.
face-off between Filipinos and Cesar Chavez. But a quick question from the chat
Yeah,
right here.
yeah.
What's your relationship with CPUSA?
Um, I was trained by anti-revisionists, and it's my opinion that the Communist Party gave in to racism, national chauvinism, became super ineffective around the early 50s.
Okay, and it hasn't recovered since.
Yes.
Okay, and you know about the Laroussians actually like fighting it out with them, right? I think they actually had like fist fights or something.
Yeah, that's I think the Rushites are an opportunistic cult.
Could be, yeah, could be.
I don't think they offer anything of substance.
They've
I don't
been
think they
they've been
actually
consistent on
organize
their
any people.
position, but they actually got on the ballot this year, so they did pretty well here in New York. But they did actually pair it with Brana
What was their
when Iris
policy?
made to them.
What's their policy? Oh, and they're so the Laroushites. Okay, so the Laroushites believe the best economic system in the world is not socialism. They think it's Americanism, and there was ideas at the founding of the United States that were so much better. The same United States that had genocide and slavery. And the reason why the Laroushites think China, they love China too, but the reason why they think China's doing so well is because they adopted American policies.
I don't
How
believe, yeah.
condescending and disgusting and racist and American chauvinist is that fucking position?
Some
Like
of them probably
that's
mean
a
well. Some of them probably mean
yeah,
well,
yeah.
but
I'm
the
not
thing is
saying, but
that, yeah,
I've looked at their maybe some of them mean well. Maybe it's a social club. Maybe these
yeah,
people in suits that sound smart, and it's a cool thing to go to on a Saturday. Trying to say like you know like I'm looking at their
yeah.
beliefs and arguing what
Um,
they claim where their claim beliefs are.
you know what? I would like to see a little more consistency. Like I made the evidence to them available about like Nick Brana, and all I can speak is on my own personal stuff. On my own personal stuff, they let me down. So, I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying that overall, yeah, that's what happened. So, Theo just cast. What type of socialism are you? Is James? The international used to identify with the third international, right? The Communist International.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
There you
and there's also there's Marxism, Leninism, and then Marxist Leninism, Maoism, which was adopted in the 80s. And
yeah,
even though I respect aspects of Mao
yeah.
and I respect some Maoists that do good work, um, I don't fully adopt some of those principles. So I'm kind of in between there in just Marxism, Leninism.
That's fair.
But I'll work with anybody. You know what I'm trying to
I
say?
know a
If
lot of I know a lot of
yeah,
Chinese
yeah,
people. I know a lot of old people that were affected by the Cultural Revolution. people that say cultural revolution
Yeah,
didn't happen, you got to
the
talk to Chinese
Cultural
people.
Revolution had a lot of
It did happen.
horrible things.
It did happen.
To
Yeah.
me, the Cultural Revolution was an adventurist thing where they relied too much. They relied too much on ideas,
I'm
and
not gonna say it was all. Yeah.
they didn't focus on building the economy and feeding people, and the country basically ascended into chaos. But there was problems of capitalists trying to take back over,
I
which
don't
they were
believe
trying
everything
to
I hear about
prevent.
the Cultural Revolution, but I know a lot of old people were affected. And
Yeah,
I can
there was
see it,
horrible
like interacting with
aspects.
them. Like I can see they're messed up.
There was
Yeah.
horrible aspects of, and my position as a Marxist Leninism and not a Maoist as the cultural there's most Maoists and some Marxist Leninism will tell you that the Cultural
Well,
Revolution
I'm not
was
even
the
sure.
best thing that ever happened in the world.
Yeah, I'm not even
I
sure it was
don't
Mao. I'm not
I
even sure
don't
it was all
agree
Mao's
with it.
fault, right? Yeah, like it might
I
have been
don't
bad
agree with it.
implementation,
I don't.
right?
You
He might
know,
have
but
meant well. Who
he was
knows?
dealing with some real forces. But it's interesting thing about in the Soviet Union fell. They had opposition from the outside. Um, there was internal corruption. It was a bit of a stale system. It fell, and when they fell, it was horrible for all the third world countries they were supporting. Like it was a horrible thing, and a horrible thing. But the good thing about China is when Deng Xiaoping took power, people say, "Oh, they went back to capitalism," but the Communist Party at least still stayed in power. And today, if you look at the Chinese economy, it's been growing four times the United States for the
Yeah.
last 40 years through
Well,
socialist
I don't know
economic
what
planning.
I don't know what to
I
believe, man.
mean,
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't trust the numbers our
okay.
government or their government. So you know what I mean. I'm
I mean,
sorry.
you can
Yeah.
look at the real economy. You can look at the capitalist data on China, and they'll be like, "At what cost?" They'll say, "Oh, China's doing really good here," and they'll be like, "At what cost?" And then they'll make up a bunch of liberal smear stuff that doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm really
And
concerned about what's going on. Yeah, I think they're gonna move a lot of manufacturing out of China straight up. I've already been seeing some of the move. I know they moved a lot of the clothing manufacturing to Bangladesh, and I know
yes, they
they've moved. Yeah.
I've met with representatives from communist labor organizers from Bangladesh. Um, it's an international it's an international fight.
I really appreciate your work, man. Yeah, I really looking forward to working with you. And once again, I know a lot of people in the stuff is like trying to keep me out of the stuff, but I appreciate you talking to me, man. I really looking forward to
Hey,
working with you.
I think a lot
I
of
like your
this.
style, man.
All right,
Yeah, I don't
I
trust
think
nobody, but yeah, I appreciate you. Go
I
ahead.
honestly don't think we're having ideological differences. Like I'm a working class
Yeah.
communist. I get you're from an. I'm not sure where you're from, but you seem pretty humble. You seem like you know some people and have connections in the community. I think it's a class difference. A lot of these, it's a class culture difference. A lot of these people who are communists, who grew up well off, who never actually been confronted with people calling out their shit,
Can't
are going to
handle it.
run the
Yeah.
other. Are going to run the other direction, So I think we need more working class communists, and I think since the economy's been crashing, I think we're going to see I would like to see a redevelopment of a working class based communist movement, and that's just starting to come fruition now, and it's coming about in different ways, and it's weak, but it's forming. I'd like to see it progress, and we can have allies of any political persuasion as long as you're empowering the working class and oppressed people.
I appreciate that. I know I've held you on for a long time. I'm actually my active of the year for 2021. Theo Chino wants to jump in. He's also participates widely with actually the second international. He goes regularly to the international meetings,
Mm.
so he's quite involved. I would like it if you could jump in. We'll see. But any other questions you have regarding maybe you have some questions about myself?
Yeah, what kind of work are
Yeah.
you doing? Like I said, I've seen a few of your videos where you interview people who are doing work, and I see you building, making contacts. I agreed with some of your, although I didn't agree with the strategy. I agreed with some of your criticisms of the left. Um, I,
Okay.
I, I I'm guessing is, well, you tried some shit with them people and they want to work with you, and now you're yelling at them. But as long as I don't care, as long as you keep, I think it's important for us to keep the target on building instead of attacking others. Maybe do, can- you know,
You're blackballing me, so I'm blackballing them. That's all it
yeah,
is.
yeah, constructive
Yeah.
criticism,
They're
constructive
blackballing me,
yeah,
so I'm
yeah.
blackballing them. They're shutting me out, so I'm shutting them out. That's
I
just all
got
it
you, and
is.
it makes sense. And a lot of your
There's
stuff
nothing more to it.
is
Yeah.
absolutely true. If you look at the demasculization of Asian men and the Asian stereotypes, I think you're right on. And when I hear you
Appreciate
talk about those things, and I listen to your show, I learn from you, and I'm trying to
appreciate
learn.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
look,
you got.
I'm a coalition of the underserved, right? Yeah, people with disabilities, people with you know, immigrants, right? I wish I could work on more, but my Spanish is not that great. So I work with the communities, and that also is a barrier for me in the Asian American community as well, right? Yeah, I don't really speak Korean. My mom had a lot of negative experience, and she hated Korea, and a lot of people don't really understand what that's like, but I do. Oh well, whatever, whatever. Anyways, yo, it was really cool to speak with you, man. And oh look, Theo is here. Oh my goodness, yeah, this guy's Theo. What's up, buddy?
Oh, I don't look good. Hold on, hold on.
That's all right, Theo. We're here to talk business. We're not here to
Oh,
win a fashion show.
yes, I'm sorry.
Put on
You
a
look
hat,
good,
bro.
brother.
All right, man. Go ahead.
You look good, brother.
Einstein had crazy
Thank you,
hair. Go
thank
ahead.
you.
So what do you want to say
Comrade
about?
James?
Yeah, you're a socialist. He's not about communism. That's Theo. But we're about to hear
Listen,
all
James
about it. Go
knows.
ahead, Theo.
James already knows. See that? That's a label. He knows, right,
Knows
James?
what?
I am.
Yeah, that's DSA, Second International. They're
That's
still
the
around. They're cool.
yeah, no, but I'm not DSA either.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
Oh,
I'm
he's
But
suing
they
you.
they claim they claim to be a part of the same tradition that you're a part of. But
Well, they quit. They left the Socialist International in 2017.
Mhm.
So I mean, but you see, DJ.
He's
The
suing
reason
them for misusing the logo. Actually.
well, yeah, don't get me started. But James, hi, I'm Theo. Uh, DJ, I wanted to take this opportunity and thank DJ Alf because he does a great job. But one thing I have a hard time explaining is the internationals, and we have different internationals. And right here, I just jumped in out of the blues, and you already knew who I was.
We were talking about it. Yeah.
Yes, he exactly. So I just wanted to say hi, James. And I was wondering what type of international you were, because
Third.
I didn't get that from I didn't I just jump in the talk in the
He's the
middle.
third international. He's the third international, right? Right, Dust?
yes,
Yeah.
Oh, so you okay? Cool. So we have differences. There is no doubt.
well, same goal. Socialism is the same goal.
Well, it depends on what happened how you see what happened in 1920. That's what makes the difference between you
The
and I.
largest and quickest industrialization, and electricization of a country in human history.
Yeah, that we agree. I mean, they did, but the thing is, the method they use is something we didn't really kind of like. We had different
Okay,
methods, and we
but the people who enjoyed those massive improvements in their lives were fully in support of them. Like I understand we sitting in the Western countries. I mean, like, oh, they're a little hard, and I don't, they're a little hard, they're a little mean. I don't like how they did this. But the masses of people living in destitute poverty, they're ready to take the necessary
well, we
means
agree.
to take about those changes.
But the Third International is also a party that has been in power. I mean, it's a party that knows how to govern. They have governed. They govern around the world. I mean, China, they govern. They know what needs to be done to govern in a way.
The
And
third
is
international.
yes,
Does China participate with the third international?
They were well, not really, not
what's
really.
left of it. Well, you. Well, anyway,
Okay, the Chinese Revolution was a little bit after, and the third international decided to dispense, and we haven't had one since.
Okay,
The Trotskyites say they have an international. They didn't. That was some lame shit. They never
that's
had one.
number 4.
Nope,
But
I'm not counting it.
no, but James,
Where'd you
James,
get?
the reason I say that is because trying to get in America, we have a problem with socialism, communism, everything. When you talk to anyone in Missouri or you talk someone any state, they say, "Oh, communism, anarchism, socialism, same shit," and move on.
What?
And
Yeah. Could we have a fifth international?
there is a fifth international.
Oh,
That's
there
what I
is?
call. There
Who's
is.
that?
That's the Chavistas from
Yeah,
Venezuela.
I was not a happy when he said that. I was not happy when he said that.
We agree,
Like
but
when Chavez recognized the Fourth International, I was pissed at him. I was pissed, but I still love him and all of what he did. Just ideologically, that's a disagreement I have with
but
Chavez.
exactly. But what I wanted to say, James, is because what I'm trying right now, I'm running for the chairman of the Democratic Party in New York City, in New York County, and
That's
I'm
good.
running as a socialist. I run the socialist faction inside the Democratic Party,
Good.
and DJ Alf here is a Rep My Block ambassador.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
because DJ doesn't have any values, DJ is all over the place. DJ wants us to be friend with with a right wing Proud Boy. Let's say that way. We
Don't be friends with the Proud Boys, man.
no
They're not
no.
cool.
DJ is neutral. DJ is learning.
What?
DJ is experimenting everything. DJ is the coolest guy
The
in New
Proud
York.
Boys are specifically out there to attack and harass oppressed
I
people. Like
agree.
why would you get down with that? Like I don't get that.
No, he's
Because they
not
actually
down with
talk
it.
to me.
He talks to everybody because he wants to learn everybody. He
Hmm.
wants to understand
I
everybody.
don't trust
And
the
what
labels that other
and
people give to them. Yeah.
and so he wants to experience everything. And but the thing is, that's why he's the Rep My Block ambassador, because Rep My Block is about running for office. If you have the guts to go out there and say, "Oh, we need to do this for America," fine,
Do it.
run for office.
I agree. I would like to see more people
Way.
run for office.
Yeah.
And
And it
that's
gets
why
people.
DJ.
Yeah. And it gets the people who really need the change. They'll show up. The casuals, right? Yeah.
Mm.
They're not going to actually show up. So the people that need change are going to do the extra work. So we're going to find out who's real about this.
I don't. Here's some. I think what's interesting about socialism in the United States is it's been really weak. The left's been really weak, and I was going over with DJ. It was mostly a two-part thing: the carrot and the stick. You know, you had McCarthyism, we had
Yep,
COINTELPRO, mass murder and imprisonment of communists. We also had the labor aristocracy, which bribed off the
correct.
workers, and we had the black bourgeoisie, and you get where I'm going. People that
Uh,
sold out their own communities.
yes.
Um,
Oh,
and honestly, the only well, we had if you go back far enough in history, probably the closest thing to the Second International, which wasn't the Second International, ideologically was like the IWW, and they had massive labor. They were a massive labor. They were to me they were a little anarchistic and it was sloppy in a lot of ways, but they won things and they did things. But honestly, the only
yeah.
other labor movement in the United States that was the most militant and got the most done was the CIO. The CIO was led by communists who supported Stalin. Like,
Yeah.
and that's why we don't hear about the CIO. That's why we don't hear about the communist labor movement.
Listen, in this game right here, yeah, I'm not trying
But
to be overly negative, okay?
so
Right? Yeah, because there's good moments too. But the only thing you
Mhm.
can count on in this game is betrayal and disappointment. That's the only thing you can count on. Yeah. I'm not saying there's not good moments, but that's all you can count on.
well,
Uh, go ahead.
DJ, you know me now.
Yeah.
No, I wanted to say sorry. I mean,
No,
uh,
I'm asking a question.
what I
Like,
stand for, I will
what's
do.
your thought on that? What do you think about rebuilding the left in the United States? What do you think about the history within the United States and how to build on the legacy of the left in the United States?
That's what I'm doing. But the thing is, it has to be done in Republican and Democratic Party. And you have to assert who you are in the Democratic Party because I'm on the left. I'm in New York. But
I got you.
I'm
I
telling
mean,
everybody I'm a socialist. And but I broke it up in 5 pieces. I used the 5 international, and I keep telling people when I send a letter to
Theo, you're breaking up. Theo, you froze. Yeah. Theo, you froze for you too. Yeah, we're getting theoretical here. Yeah. Go ahead.
he's not getting theoretical, but he's saying to run in the elections and run within the Democratic Party.
Well, actually, I'm
I
doing
think the
that myself.
Democratic Party is really controlled and corrupt. And once you get to
I
a certain
agree.
level in the Democratic Party, they're going to stop you and shut you down. I like the Green Party and I like third independent parties, and I think we can win. Communists, socialists, just progressive people, populists
the
can win in local
the LaRouches got on the
elections.
ballot. They got on the
Yeah.
ballot, and I supported
Yeah,
them,
you
and then
can,
they pulled me out
they
from
can
the
win in
front.
local elections, and I'm all for that. But I think the main thing, the main way to get in with the most oppressed people is we have to organize directly within the community, like maybe do cop watch, or maybe look at public resources that aren't being divvied out right and pressure the government. Show up to the city councils, bring the people, or militant labor or democratic and insurgent labor activism, like within the corrupt unions that exist,
You know what?
form.
Okay, yeah. Let me tell you something about the labor. Okay, let me
Yeah,
tell you something about the labor movement right now. Yeah, the thing is that one thing that's weird about it. Okay, a lot. Well, if we look at the real infrastructure of this country, right, like the people who is doing like the dirty work, right, like the railroads, stuff like that, they're really the infrastructure of this country. And when it was time for them to get their contract, it was ignored. Instead, we're focusing on Amazon and the Starbucks and stuff like that, like making Amazon and Starbucks more okay. Now, the thing is that I have an interview on my channel with the only unionized Chinese restaurant in all of New York City, right? Yeah, that's a significant accomplishment. But we noticed that, unionization for some workers is worth more than for other workers. And it's the workers that the bourgeoisie is comfortable with, right? Yeah, and they're more, they care more about the Starbucks workers than their Chinese, restaurants. Yo, come on, man. You know what I mean? What is this shit? You know what I mean? It's not cool, bro. You know what I mean? Like, so, and hopefully the Communist Party could start being once again an ally and a leader in this, and by participating with me, you're actually right. Where's the past communists before talking about this? But you are actually participating with me and helping with this. And once again, I don't care what you call yourself. If you're helping me with these issues, then you're an ally and a friend. Thank you so much, Dust.
all right, man. I gotta head out, and
Okay,
I'm sorry
yeah.
I took up so much of your time.
No, I appreciate you, man. I really do.
I
I
do
really
shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 7, 8 o'clock. I'm available if you want to have me come back on. I'd like to interviews. Maybe I'll interview you sometime. Maybe we
Sure.
can study if you open to studying Marx. I leave studies on Marx.
I checked out that other book. I read the Communist Manifesto. I did not read that Wage and Capital thing.
Wage, labor, and capital. That's where I would start. And if
I'll
you want to
actually,
do a
yeah.
study on it, I'll host a study, and you can join the study.
I'll when I play on the train, sometimes I have my headphones in, like I'm playing. I'll listen to books while I'm playing. So.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
I drive all day. I listen to audiobooks. That's what All right, brother. I gotta get in.
Hey, thanks again, man. I really appreciate you. Thanks so much. Yeah, you're a pioneer.
Nice finally being able to talk to you. Have a good night,
God bless,
brother.
Thank you.